I was a product of public education, Warren Consolidated Schools, and I say that with a great deal or sense of pride, but I was not one of those all-A students. I was the middle child, a bit challenged, but what he would really be impressed is the fact that I'm actually here in a library. He would probably tell you it was the first time ever I'd been in a library. But with that being said, I want to welcome you all. Obviously, this is Chippewa Valley Schools, Ojibwa. I have a great affinity with Ojibwa Elementary. And Ron Roberts, the superintendent of the school district here, has done a fabulous job. But my job here today is to tell everybody to turn off their phones and make sure you're not being disruptive in the classroom. So children, take note, that was an adult that had his phone on. But with that being said, the situation we have here today is phenomenal for our educational system. I think over this past year, people would have thought, you know, the tragedy that struck, you know, with this pandemic really did have an impact on our kids and the school system and the school year. But I got to tell you, from the county executive perspective, what an incredible job the school district has done. And I got to highlight somebody. He's standing over here, Mike DeVault. Mike DeVault is our ISD. He's the director, the superintendent of the ISD here in Macomb County. There is no better ISD program in the March 13th of 2020 was absolutely phenomenal with our schools. The first thing we had to do is figure out how do we get food to the kids in the neighborhoods, and we did that along with the schools. How do we provide funding to support what they needed? And the grants that we got from the state as well as the federal government, over $10 million that we use of county money to support not only technology, but the curriculum opportunities for kids. Obviously, it wasn't the greatest learning environment, and working with the teachers, that again, the schools, not just the superintendents, the educational partners, but even the districts that happen to have, you know, their school boards. There was a lot of tension, a lot of animosity, a lot of unknown, but working together, we did try to do the best we could to provide an educational experience for the kids here in Macomb County. And again, Mike, your leadership and the connection we had with our health department, our folks from our emergency management, your team, I can't say enough about. Each and every day we were trying to figure out how do we do what we're doing on behalf of the kids and not on behalf of the politics. So with that being said, I'm proud, I'm excited. Here we have an announcement for more funding opportunities, which is so needed. And again, let's be honest, I think this governor, Governor Whitmer, truly does have an interest in trying to support education, specifically public education here in the state of Michigan. And obviously so too does this governor. And it is now my pleasure to introduce the principal of the school to give you his words and once again welcome you to Ojibwa.
Thank you, Mr. Ackel, and for welcoming everyone to Ojibwa Elementary School and to our hometown of Macomb County. We at Ojibwa Elementary and the Chippewa Valley Schools are extremely honored. We were selected to host today's event and appreciate your welcoming address. Additionally, I would like to acknowledge the Chippewa Valley School Board members that are in attendance, Mrs. Denise Aquino, Mrs. Beth Pyden, and Dr. Jolene Andriashko, and to thank them for their continued support and guidance. Ojibwa Elementary School is one of the original buildings within the Chippewa Valley Schools, and through the wonderful support of our parents, community, and staff, we have continued in our mission to successfully educate our students academically and social-emotionally. Community has always been the center of Chippewa Valley Schools, and today it is my privilege and honor to introduce Governor Gretchen Whitmer to our community, the Chippewa Valley Schools, and Ojibwa Elementary School. Governor Gretchen Whitmer.
in front of me. I just am so excited to be here with you guys and all of the rest of you too. So I'm thrilled that we are joined by so many legislators as I sign today's supplemental. It is a bipartisan effort, and it is really exciting because we need to take the politics out of a lot of things, but especially the education of our kids. So I want to thank Senators Voino and Baer and McDonald, Representatives Shannon and Stone and Wozniak, Steenland and Weiss. I'm so glad that they are all here representing their chambers in the Michigan legislature, because they all played a role in helping make sure we got this done. So I am glad to be here at Ojibwa Elementary School. This year, this pillar of the community is celebrating its 50th birthday, as am I. We were both born in 1971, apparently. And I'm proud to be here today to sign this bill, because this is about critical investment in our kids, in our teachers, in our parapros, in administration, and all of the different pieces that make public education work for our children. And I'm excited about this, because this pandemic's been hard. It's been hard on every single one of us. And as resilient as we know our kids are, there's no question schools worked to make sure that food was available to kids who weren't getting their meals because they weren't in school. In classrooms all across, we saw teachers doing remarkable things, building communities, celebrating wins, and supporting students through the unimaginable that we all confronted. As we continue Michigan's economic jumpstart, I'm really proud that leaders in Washington, D.C. and Lansing recognize that educators can move mountains for our kids. And it's our job to give them the support so that they're successful in doing that. The bipartisan supplemental bill that I am signing today distributes over $4 billion from the federal elementary and secondary school emergency relief, or the ESSER funds, to power schools and to get our kids back on track. Now, these funds will be distributed to districts based on their Title I Part A allocation, which means we are getting more money to districts that serve students with the highest need. But all districts are going to be getting a lot of help through this bill. What schools do with these resources matters tremendously. That's why earlier this year I appointed the Student Recovery Advisory Council to better In May, a group of cross-sector leaders, a part of this Recovery Council, released their blueprint that districts can use to create a comprehensive student recovery plan that meets the needs of their students. We know that this recovery isn't just about brushing up on fractions or remembering when to use the quadratic formula, although I could use a refresher. Our students need comprehensive recovery that is tailored to their needs, that is informed by the experts in the classroom. So the blueprint provides recommendations to address challenges across wellness, academics, school culture and climate, family and community engagement, and post-secondary education. And I should thank Paula Herbart, too, who has been an important voice as we have navigated these challenging times. So I urge every local leader to visit michigan.gov/student recovery and use these resources to make educators, tell your story and speak out about what your students need. Parents, make sure your voice is in the conversation and ask your school leaders how they're planning for the recovery that is multi-year, evidence-based, and equity-driven. Community organizations, make sure you raise your hand and tell your districts how you can partner and be a support. And we're working to do our part, too, from Lansing. These resources are a great start, but they are a one-time boost for our schools. And we know that adequate, ongoing funding is essential to supporting world-class schools that our states need and that our students deserve. In the coming days, I will be signing a school budget that will fund schools for the 2021-2022 school year. Now, the bipartisan budget makes a historic investment in schools without raising taxes. It closes the funding gap between schools in Michigan, a goal we have been working toward for almost 30 years. So this is a big deal. This is a good deal. In Michigan, on average, schools in lower income communities have received less state aid and local money than schools in higher income communities, perpetuating the inequities that we've been confronting. Since taking office, my readiness program for 22,000 more four-year-olds. This will make it universally accessible for four-year-olds in Michigan, and it increases access to counselors, psychologists, and nurses in our schools. The wraparound supports our kids really need. So each of these investments in our kids and schools will help us continue our economic jumpstart. We will stay laser-focused on emerging from this pandemic stronger than ever. In the midst of a pandemic, two agencies, Fitch and S&P, upgraded the state credit rating in the middle of a pandemic because we were managing through it. We've seen our GDP grow faster than any other state in the region. Our unemployment is lower than the national average. We got the Golden Shovel Award for manufacturing because we are moving forward on economic development. And we turned a $3 billion projected deficit into a $3.5 billion surplus. It's good news. And our vaccination rates are closing in on 63%, which is moving toward the ultimate goal of 70%. So right now we've got this unprecedented opportunity to use the federal stimulus funds and our $3.5 billion state budget surplus to make transformative young children who want to return to work but can't because they've got to make sure that their kids are cared for. To address these challenges, part of the Economic Jumpstart Plan invests $1.4 billion into child care, into the industry, so we can pay providers and child care professionals more. It would make 150,000 more kids eligible for low or no-cost child care and expand support for student parents. And for small businesses, we're offering grants up to $20,000 for mortgage, rent, taxes, payroll, or other operating expenses. We did a lot of help for businesses through the pandemic, but some didn't get enough or didn't get any, and that's why we're making this available. And we're also investing in programs to help people get good-paying, high-skill jobs and ensure that businesses can staff up and meet their local talent needs. Last year, we created the Futures for Frontliners, a program that put people who served on the front lines of the pandemic on a tuition-free path to higher education or skills training. And this program, which we modeled after the GI Bill after World War II, is the first of its kind in the country. I am confident that other states, when they see what we're doing, are going to emulate what we've created here. But over 85,000 people have signed up for all of these pieces are really making a difference, and we are jump-starting our economy. If we keep working together and we keep the focus on Michigan, we've got the power to help people prosper and push our economy to new highs. That includes everyone. And so with that, I just want you to know I'm so glad to be here. This is an important step in this economic jumpstart, and I'm really proud to be signing this supplemental. But before I do that, we got a few more people who want to address you, and I'm going to turn this over to the superintendent. Thank you.
So on behalf of our entire school community and our Board of Education, it gives me great pleasure to welcome our Governor, Gretchen Whitmer, her team, and all our distinguished guests to Chippewa Valley Schools. What a great honor it is to host the Governor for this historic bill signing that will provide much-needed funding support for all of Michigan's public education students. I want to personally thank Governor Whitmer and the Macomb legislative delegation for their truly bipartisan effort to come together on behalf of every Michigan student to get this done. This bill simply highlights their collective enough. This funding will provide us with the resources to ensure a safe, successful, in-person school opening with all the proper student supports in place. Next year, Chippewa Valley will offer our students a new one-to-one technology program. This funding will help us provide the additional resources to support this initiative. It will also help us to increase student supports in the areas of social-emotional learning, school climate, and before and after school programming. In addition to the release of these important ESSER funds, I personally and everyone in Chippewa Valley is very interested in the school aid package that would provide an increase to Michigan's lowest funded districts like Chippewa Valley Schools. We are one of the largest, lowest funded school districts in the state receiving the minimum foundation allowance. Since the passage of Proposal A 27 years ago, we have been advocating for both increases and equalization in school funding. While we have always been thankful for the legislative efforts to eliminate the funding gap between minimum foundation districts and higher funded districts, this new school aid bill would be the first important step in beginning to provide an equitable funding mechanism for all Michigan schools, ensuring that every Michigan student, regardless of where they live, our efforts to support students and teachers in Macomb County and across our state have not gone unnoticed. Governor Whitmer, on behalf of Chippewa Valley Schools and the 21 Macomb County school districts, I want to thank you for your continued support in signing this bill. Thank you very much.
My name is Michelle Woodman, and I serve as the Vice President of Michigan Education Association Local 1, which represents most of Macomb County. I also teach middle school choir, speech, and cultural literacy at Algonquin Middle School here in Chippewa Valley. In my 6th grade speech class, we talk about persuasion. I teach them about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. As I teach this, it always hits me just how many obstacles that need to be overcome before students can be ready to learn. Every day, students come to school with a variety of needs. Some need support with food, some need support regulating their emotions, some don't have adequate clothing or school supplies. The fact that these needs must be addressed has become more pronounced and visible due to the pandemic. It is no secret that the last 18 months have been incredibly difficult for everyone, and each student's experience has been different. I had a student who had to do my choir class in her car every afternoon because her dad works nights and was sleeping. These students are amazing and resilient, and yet, honestly, I hate that they had to be, because so much of their resilience came out of their lack of resources, something that these funds will help relieve. While I don't agree with the term learning loss, I do know that each of our students experience this pandemic differently. It's important that we recognize students as individuals, honoring their experiences during this time and meeting each where they are now, which is what good educators have been doing all along. Our MEA members worked so many extra long hours, going above and beyond to make sure that students had what they needed. The funds that are being released today will have a huge influence on our ability to reach students. These funds will help make sure that we have the right tools in the hands of the right educators to best reach each student exactly where they are. Thank you, legislators, and thank you, Governor Whitmer, for supporting our students and educators, giving us the ability to reach our students more completely exactly where they are.
Hi, my name is Kara Konasek. I'm a graduate of Chippewa Valley Schools. Is a step toward equity for all students. This budget provides the largest investment in K-12 education history. The passage of this budget ensures that Chippewa Valley teachers can continue to support the needs of all students and move forward in providing the quality education we always have. The additional funds will help our district to build and maintain a safe learning environment well beyond the pandemic. Governor Whitmer, we would like to thank you for being a friend to educators, an ally to students, and for prioritizing K-12 education.
All right, Bobby, it's time for Q&A. All right, we'll open up for a little Q&A, and then I'd like you guys to come join me while I sign the bill. But I'll do a couple questions first, unless one of you wants to answer the question. You do? Oh, she's offering it. All right. This is usually where most people run away from the microphone. Yes.
How are you?
I'm well, thank you.
Good. You talked about this will serve districts with the highest need and closing the per pupil gap. Can you explain that a little bit more and also address mental health, which I know is a particular concern for this particular ISD superintendent because I've talked to him about it quite a few times. Could you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I want to thank Mike for being here, and I'm certain he will be happy to answer some questions afterward, too, right? Should I offer that up, Mike? All right. So we've got two things that are happening within the next 7 days. The first is this is the supplemental, and these are the ESSER dollars that we're able to infuse into our districts. These are one-time dollars that we are fortunate to have that we can now deploy. This is an opportunity that has equity built into it because we acknowledge what the needs are of our students. The other is the school budget that I will be signing, I think, next week. I'm not going to make an announcement here when that is because I know we just got the bill and there's a process. Are important steps to acknowledge and address the historic disparities in funding in public education across Michigan. When we adopted Proposal A in 1994, the hope was that we would level out the differences in school districts, and it's changed a little bit over time, but now this is our final opportunity to see the equity that voters expected almost 30 years ago.
So can you give me like a ground level example of how that closes that gap and then also address the mental health?
Yeah, so I mean, when you look across what the per pupil foundation allowance has been, you'll see that it varies from district to district. Now it won't. So that's the kind of bottom line. We also will have additional equity built into a number of places where we're creating more opportunity where there's greater need for special education or English language learners. So these are components of it as well. With regard to our children's mental health needs, I mean, we know that kids are resilient. We've all talked about it, and yet it's undeniable. They've absorbed a lot of the stress and tough stuff that we've all confronted over the last year and a half. So wrapping our kids with supports in their schools, whether it's hiring more counselors or having smaller classes by hiring more teachers. These are all aspects, I think, to addressing the whole child. We need to recognize that some kids come to school with different needs, and that's why it's on us to give schools the support so that they can do their best to meet those needs. Yes?
Hello, the School Finance Research Collaborative updated funding stand when it comes to the recommended precedented for per pupil spending?
Well, what I think you're going to see is represented here is that we're taking major steps toward equity, toward increased support for all students across the state of Michigan. And our economy. We've got to have talent. We've got to have opportunity. We've got to have skills. And so this, I think, represents a major step toward an investment in our economy that will benefit everyone, whether you've got kids in public schools or not, whether you work in public schools or not. When you invest in education, you invest in the future and the strength of our state economy. So I think there are a lot of great aspects to this that we're all going to feel. Yeah.
Is there a numerical value for the per pupil increase, and is it 100% additive, or do some school districts maybe lose a little to give it to lesser performing schools?
So the budget bill that I'll be signing in the coming days, I think will be able to give you a lot more clarity on what the bottom line will mean by individual school district. I believe we can follow up with you and share some of those numbers now. I'm sure Bobby would be happy to do that with you. Yeah. All right. Yeah.
You share the same optimism with the entire state budget overall?
I knew that question would come up at some point. You know, I am glad we can see it yet in the coming weeks. I'm not quite sure what the legislative calendar is. You can take that up with the leadership in the legislature. I'll just say, you know, time is of the essence, and we've got an opportunity now to get these budgets finished. Will give, I think, everyone, especially if you're one of the frontliners that wants to take advantage of low or no cost educational opportunities, or you are a university, you're going to one of our phenomenal community colleges or universities, or any other aspect in the way that state government touches your life. The quicker we can get these budgets done and negotiated and signed, the better for everyone. So I'm hopeful that they will return to work and get it done soon.